Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. We finally found a used 350 engine for our budget build Nova, and I paid 300 bucks for it. All I know about it is that it is a 350 because I checked the casting number, and it was supposed to have ran when it was pulled out of the car a couple years ago. It's been sitting on a stand, completely sealed up. The guy sandblasted it. Someone was going to clean it up and paint it, and sandblasted it and then stopped. So it was completely sealed up. All the spark plugs are in it. All the ports are taped up, intake's taped up, all that. So anyway, we're going to get it out of the back of the truck. We're going to get it on a stand, and we're going to start looking at it real close and see what we can figure out. Okay, so one thing I like to do as soon as I get an engine on a stand, I leave the hoist connected just in case me moving it around when I first get it on there, find something that I screwed up. Maybe I tightened the bolt too much and broke it or something like that. First thing I'm going to do is get this junky water pump off the front, reduce a little bit of the nose weight, and hopefully there's no water in this, because I hate cleaning up water. I mean, I really hate cleaning up water on the shop floor. Okay, no water. That also decreases the chance that this thing froze, because sometimes blocks freeze, even in Georgia. And usually if a block has a freeze crack in it, it's going to be right here where the deck meets the water jacket. There'll be a split right there on one of the sides, usually. There can be other places. Okay, when buying a used engine, there's a few things you want to look for. One of the things you want to look for is how well the engine was sealed up. Now this one was sealed up really good, so I'm not too worried about it. But if you go buy an engine, a used engine, it's supposed to run, if it's wide open and it looks like rain or moisture, even if it's inside of a shop, moisture can get into it. One thing that people forget about, they'll leave the exhaust ports open, and if any of the valves are open, well, the cylinder's open because air can get in past the valve and get down to the cylinder. Now, if your spark plugs are in, that's always good. But if the exhaust ports and the intake port isn't covered, then some of the open valves can let moisture and stuff get into the cylinder. And that's a little bit more tricky to fix than a rusted valve. So hopefully the valves are good, the cylinders are all good. We're going to find out. Now another thing you want to look for, if you're buying a used engine, kind of look around for signs that it's been rebuilt. And this one has been rebuilt. It's got a serial number of some sort on it, and it also has a warranty tag. Now what these are is those are designed to melt off if the engine is overheated. So what happens is if you overheat this engine that was remanufactured, probably like an AutoZone or Pep Boys engine or something like that, who knows how old it is. If you overheat the engine, this thing falls off, and if it's not there, you get no warranty because you overheated the engine. Now in a used engine, you want to look for rusted freeze plugs. You want to look for cracks along the deck right here, stuff like that, especially the freeze plugs in the back of the block, because those are the worst to change on the side of the road, because you don't. Make sure you, like I said, you look for any kind of cracks or anything like that. Look for that kind of stuff, and you should be okay. All right, this valve cover has the T-bars on it, so I'm gonna pull it off. Some old smog heads on here, so. spreader bars. And if you're putting valve covers on, especially chrome tin valve covers instead of cast aluminum, you really could use these to spread the load out. It'll help a little bit with the gasket leaking. Now, I'm going to get my blower real quick and blow some of this dirt off before I pull this up. Okay, clean that off the best I could. And the inside of this looks extremely clean on the valve cover and extremely clean on the rocker arms. Now, I don't see anything that looks crazy bad. Everything looks pretty good. These heads are casting number, where's it at? 624. So these are some 76cc smog heads, but you know, we're not trying to make it go fast. We're just trying to make it go fun. Okay. And yep, this side looks just as good. There is a little bit of oil there with something in it. I think it's just moisture. All right, yeah, there was a little bit of milky right there. And at first it looked like it could have been metal shavings, but it was just moisture. Now I'm gonna pull these old paper towels out and see if I can look inside. Okay, so I got the plastic cover off the first one and more paper towels. So he had this thing sealed up really, really well. I didn't see anything horrendous in the other side. Now see, that worries me because that one had a piece of plastic on it and there's a ton of sand in this port and down all around the valve on both of those. So, but not this one. There's some sand down in there, but it wasn't so bad. We might pull the heads off this. I've got an extra set of head gaskets that I can put on here just to get everything, make sure it's clean. All right, I'm gonna get this paper off the timing cover. See, there's sand all around that too. So yeah, a bunch of sand dropping out. I'm gonna have to at least take the oil pan off. This is why I didn't spin it over. You know, typically on a used engine, you would like to spin it over to make sure it will rotate. But when I saw the sand on the outside of it, I knew I didn't want to try that, but because it probably wasn't spun over since it was sandblasted. So what I'm hoping is that the sand could have got inside, but it didn't get ground into anything. Like I said, there's a pretty good bit of sand around the snout of the crank right there. And I'm going to check. I see a Healy coil or something down in there for the crank bolt. I need to check that and make sure that the threads are okay. All right. And this really isn't going to come off until I get the oil pan off. So I'm just going to go ahead and, I mean, you can pry it out, but I don't want to bend it because it makes it really hard to seal up later. Okay, we're going to see if there's any oil in it before I make a mess taking a pan loose. Well, yes and yes. I still made the mess. Okay, we've got enough oil drained out of it. So now I'm going to pull the corner bolts loose on the oil pan, which are 1/2 inch on the 4 corners. And then I'm going to pull all the 3/8 bolts out, going around the edge. Which I just noticed not all of them are in there, but probably that used to hold the transmission lines in, because on a stock setup there is a bracket that holds your transmission lines to the oil pan bolts. We'll leave one bolt in on that side. because it looks like the pan's already trying to move. Yep. Well, at least I'm not going to have to hit it with a hammer to get it to come off. Oh, 4-bolt main. I see that already. That's a good thing. It's got a one-piece gasket. And I don't see a lot of sand at the front of that block, which is what I was worried about. At the front of the pan having a... there's a little bit of sludge in the bottom of the pan, but I'm not too worried about that. Okay, so what I can tell with just taking the oil pan off, it is a 4-bolt main block, and it also has some high-performance rod bolts in it, and it's got heavy-duty X rods. I looked up in the bottom of the block at the bottom of the pistons, and you can tell that they're cast or hyperprotected pistons. A forged piston will be completely smooth on the bottom side of the piston, and a cast or hyperprotected piston will be will have ridges and casting flash, stuff like that. So we're going to pull this timing cover off. Everything looks nice and clean in there. Nothing looks too scary. Looking in my water jacket for the water pump right there, it doesn't look real rusty at all. Well, dang, there's a bolt in there. There's a bolt in there. And there's a bolt in there. It looks like oil pan or timing cover bolts were stuck in there. That's kind of weird. I'll have to see if I can get those out. I can see in the lifter valley from here, everything looks okay. It's got a double roller timing chain on there that is tight, but that's okay. Yeah, not too bad. So it doesn't look like the sand got anywhere past this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the heads off real quick and make sure there's not a bunch of sand in the cylinders that might have got past a valve or something. And because some of the valves are open, you can look down the side and see some of them pushed down. So some of the valves are open, so I want to make sure no sand got in the cylinders. I've got another set of head gaskets I can throw in here real quick and we'll see. But so far everything is looking great. It's really, really clean. It's got some heavy duty rods in it. It's a heavy duty block. The only thing I'm hoping is that there's nothing wrong with the cylinders. Okay, I'm going to take the intake off real quick so we can get one of the heads off. I'm going to be very careful. I don't want to lose my lifter spacing. I don't know if this thing's got a performance cam in it or not. I mean, it's kind of got some performance parts on it. So I'm not sure what all we're dealing with. But I want to get the intake off so we can get the heads off and look at the cylinders and make sure they're all right. Wow, that don't want to come loose. Okay. The 4 corner bolts go into water jackets, so they're bad about being a little rustier than the rest, and it was pretty nasty looking. All right, all the bolts are out. I don't like just sticking something under and prying on it. Sometimes you have to. Just be careful not to gouge the head or anything. I'm going to try to put the camera up here so we can see what's in on the inside. Maybe not. Alright, everything in there looks pretty much squeaky clean. See a little bit of moisture, but you know, that's not bad at all. Okay, before I start taking the heads off, one thing I want to say is, if this is a remanufactured engine, like a mass rebuilder, like through AutoZone or someone like that, there's a very good chance the cylinders will be bored to like 80 over. That's one thing you got to look out for if you're buying a reman engine. Mass rebuilders like that, they may sonic check them. I don't know. They warranty them, so they're not made for high performance use, because some of them, and I have bought a couple of them that were 80 over 350s. So I'm hoping it's not that, and I'm not really worried about it, because if it runs good, it runs good. But I'm just hoping that not all the life is out of this block. I'm hoping that if in the future, if it has some issues, it could be bored again, or you know, something like that, or it's got the most material possible in the cylinder. So let's get some bolts out, get a head off, and see what we're dealing with on the cylinders. Okay, so before you can get the head bolts out, you got to pull the rocker arms off, because your socket won't reach down in between them to get the head bolts out. So all right, let's see if we can get our head bolts loose now. I'm really hoping is that this thing's like 30 over, and it's got a little dirt right there. But I'm gonna have to clean this thing out, vacuum it, and blow it out, check everything real good. I'm really hoping it's a 30 or 40 over, something like that. It's not gonna be standard, but let's hope and pray. I think it moved. There we go. I forgot to pull those out, so let's get those out of the way. Let's see. Make sure all my bolts are out. Oops. Let's see here. I tell you what, we got good news. I don't know if you can see this or not. Let me grab the flashlight. Those things are 40 over. That's pretty good news. And yeah, there's some sand in the cylinders, but I can still see honing marks. So as long as there's nothing big, bad going on somewhere else, this thing's in really good condition. Okay, I'm going to pull the head off this side now. I've already got my rocker arms and push rods out of the way. And let's hope there's no issues over here. That's all the head bolts out. So now we're going to try to get this one popped off. It felt like it moved already, so. Oh, that's not good. That's not good at all. We have a cylinder with a bunch of water in it. another cylinder that had a bunch of water in it. All of these had a bunch of water in them. Okay. Well, this sucks. Okay, I'm not sure how well the camera's going to pick this up. I'll shine a light if I need to. So I blew all the water out, blew all the junk out of this one. You can see this one's got a pretty good bit of stuff right here at the very top, which the rings stop really about a 1/4 inch down. Not even that far, but this one's got a pretty good rust stain right there and at the bottom by the piston. And then also at the top, the bore's pretty rusty. This one's rusty all the way around. You can kind of see, I'm trying to get a light where you can see it. And then this one doesn't look so bad, but you can see it's sat at one spot and it's got a ring about halfway down between the top of the bore and the piston. So at some point it sat and then got turned over. And then this one's actually right there by the bottom by the piston. And then this section right here is what's got me the most worried. Okay, I spun it over a couple times. It still looks kind of bad right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a gray, and there's a little bit right there at the top of that bore, but most of it that was in there went away. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a gray Scotch-Brite pad. I'll say it right in a minute. A gray Scotch-Brite pad like this. Clean it up pretty good in there. And see how much, probably shaking the crap out of the camera like that. Let's put this here. Okay, so it made it a good bit better. Probably still not quite good enough. And I'm going to see if that's the only cylinder that really needs more attention and figure out what to do about it. Okay, what I did was I pulled all my lifters out. Got them in order that they were in here, because you never want to pull lifters out if you're going to reuse them and swap holes. You never want to make that mistake. Ask me how I know. Now all of them that I didn't look real close at them, but all of them seem to be okay on the bottom. What I want to do now is I want to get the camshaft out and see if it's an aftermarket cam or performance cam or what it is, to make sure this is going to work with the stock converter I planned on using in the transmission. Now they make a tool. It's a handle for camshafts. But normally what I just do is put the gear back on there with one bolt and very carefully pull it out. There we go. Yikes, too hard, too hard. Calm down, John, calm down. All right, and there is nothing on the back, and there was nothing on the front that I could tell other than a chalk number. It says 1589, so no cam marks or anything like that. So I doubt it's a performance cam, probably a completely stock cam. Okay, so the 350 is not ready to run like I hoped it would be. Now I knew this thing had been sitting for a couple of years, and this is the kind of stuff that happens when an engine's sitting. It's not a big deal. Not what I hoped for, but it's not a big deal. It is still a great deal. For $300, I got a 4-bolt main 350 that's only 40 over. I think we're going to be okay. I'm not too worried about it. Honestly, the plan, what I had figured I would have to do, is find a used 350 and re-ring it anyway for this project. And I had found several that way. So this kind of was always the plan, to find a used engine and do a super cheap, hone and ring job on it, and maybe bearings. So the camshaft that was in here was a stock camshaft. And I pretty much thought that was going to be the case, because the valve springs and all still had the rotators and stuff on there. They didn't look like they had been upgraded at all, and which you normally do with a performance cam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bottom end apart. I'm going to run my ball hone through it, clean everything up, wash it really good, check the bearings and stuff like that, and put it back together. I did pull all the lifters in the cam out. I've got a I'm going to buy a very cheap performance camshaft and put in here and hope I don't wipe a cam lobe on it. But it ought to be okay. So we still got a great deal on an engine. I'm pretty happy with the engine still. Like I said, it's got some heavy duty rods in there with good rod bolts. It's got a 4-bolt main. It's got cast pistons, but that's no big deal. And the heads, that's the only one I'm worried about. That one cylinder that had a bunch of moisture in it got me concerned. Now that one's fairly rusty, and the big problem is this one looks okay. The big problem is I don't have time to wait on a machine shop. So what I'll probably do is take them apart myself, and then I'll go through them, and if I change camshafts, I'll put some different springs in the heads. I've got a valve spring height micrometer, so I can set that up. Now my budget may be shot, so after I bought the stuff that I've got, the seat I got for free, the rear end I got for free. I paid $300 for the engine, I paid $200 for the subframe, and I paid $200 for the wheels. So that's $700. I was at $2,761 before. Now I'm at $2,061, and I still have to fix this. I have to buy a windshield. I have to buy tires. Windshield and tires alone is probably going to be right at $900. Windshield's $300. If I budget $600 for tires, I'm probably okay. So that leaves me $1,100 left to fix this, do all the electrical, and cooling and accessories. Yeah, it's going to be kind of tough, but I'm going to make it happen. Like I said, if I blow through the budget a little bit, it's okay. I don't want this to be a $10,000 build. I'm trying to do it for $5,000, and I'm going to get as close to $5,000 as I can get and still have this thing somewhat reliable. So, I'm not upset about this engine. Like I said, it's sat for a couple of years. I knew that. Happens, no big deal. It's not ideal for my situation, but like I said, still a good deal. Anyway, see you guys next video. We're going to be back working on some rust.